1, 2, 3, 4.
You're watching Spotlight, a production of Culture in Maine, York's cultural showcase. I'm Carla Christopher, poet, publisher, and producer. Join me, along with editor, musical guru, and video extraordinaire Jay Schmuck, plus wild outdoorsman and videographer, along with technical extraordinaire Cliff Kern, and all of our friends as we go behind the scenes and get into the underground of what's really going on in the arts and cultural amazing explorations that are happening in South Central Pennsylvania. You'll see everything from art to music to dance to theater, and you'll also get to meet the people who really make it happen, find out how and why. Along with some great studio performances, some amazing on-the-street footage. You'll also get the real story, and that's what we're here to shine a spotlight on. Let's go.
I'm still learning how to make fire. Rub two sticks together and start an empire. In modern times I try to connect, but it's something that I can't seem to perfect. My house has a garden with room to grow. The grid goes down, where we gonna go? Whoa, 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 I don't know. I'm still learning how to make fire. Rub two sticks together and start an empire. I'm only burning rubber with these tires. I'm still learning how to make fire. Decades full of anxiety in a backward society. I'm still learning how to make fire.
Sometimes the poem asks not to be written. It's there, but I respect its silence. Hi, my name is John Yamrus. I'm a writer, or at least I like to think myself as a writer. I'm a writer of poetry. I've written 24 volumes of poetry and 2 very bad novels over the years. The only thing those novels have taught me is that I'm not a novelist. I write poetry. My latest book of poetry is called Alchemy. Came out a few months ago. This is the lead poem, and it kind of maybe sums up what I'm about with my writing. Give me poetry. Give me poetry that's new, that fails, that makes mistakes. Give me poetry that you don't know what in the world you need to name it. Give me poetry that bleeds from the eyes and shouts at the world. Give me poetry that stands naked and beaten with its back against the wall, still screaming, I am now.
So one of my favorite things about creative people, or creatives, as we like to call them around here, is that very rarely is a creative only expressive in one area of their life. And sure enough, I have another multi-talented creative. And, I don't even know the way in which we first connected. Was it your community work? Was it working with the Unitarian Church? And, or was it actually the art? But then now in my head, it's not possible for me to separate the fact that wherever you go, whatever you're doing, you're taking risks and creating things that are unexpected. And I love that because even your art is not conventional.
No, and I appreciate you mentioning that. So I work for Unitarian Church in York, the Unitarian Church in York.
Right.
And
yes. Unitarian, the congregation of York, like it is the official.
Yeah, and I was raised Unitarian.
Oh, so you're a lifer, huh?
I'm a lifer. And I think being raised Unitarian and now my life as a Quaker in the Harrisburg area, so I cannot separate my spirituality from my art. It is me.
Really?
And going a little deeper into that, I would say that what I consider to be my piece, witness, is tremendously important to what I do. So I really do. It is funny. I don't know how I met you. I might have met you. Absolutely. I think I met you. I think we had found out about the problems that G's Juke Joint had gone through in town.
That's so through community service. So
We did.
none of the above.
And I met you.
But yet
because a community,
it all came through.
an amazing community place, had been through a hard time. They're a few blocks away from where I work. And we came just to ask what could we do. And you were there, and you'd already asked.
But that was such an amazing thing, the way that the congregation reached out to people that they didn't necessarily already know. It wasn't just about, the relationship, and it wasn't about who do I already know, and I'm here for my friends and my family and my congregation. It was, this is my community, and my community is seen as a whole different thing. It's so much more of a global concept, because there are people that are like, well, my community means my little neighborhood, my little square of familiarity. And the church's community, that particular church's community, was not what's familiar to me. It was, what do I have the potential ability to influence? Where can I go that I can make change? And wherever I can go to make change, that becomes my community. And I continue to be blown away by the beauty of that.
And that is something special, not just about Unitarian Universalists, but also Quakers. That truly, in my experience, in my particular experience, your faith impels you to do work in the world. Clearly, some of us are hardwired for spirituality. I really think some of us have that. Really? I do. I think some of us have that need for not just church as a community space, but a place in which to help make the world better. And I know I'm hardwired, loving to work for nonprofits, for example, because you are serving something larger than yourself.
You just have the genetic service gene.
Man,
you can't help it.
I think so. And I'm okay with that. And I'm not saying that my art then is completely unconscious, because I'm aware when I'm creating something that it's going out there in the world and it's a message that I need to stand behind or explain. And I need to be prepared to do that. Part of what I love about art is I love talking about art and writing about art. And I love the process of doing art, not just the finished piece that you've gotten done. And so I might be not unusual from a lot of artists in that they just love the experience. You know, you're getting the absolute, like, what do they call it, beta waves?
Oh,
like
yeah,
you're in
yep,
a,
your
you're in
whole
a,
brainwave
it's
Zen
amazing.
experience.
It's amazing. You're just, you know, you're not in yourself anymore. But then I guess I'm a little perverse for some artists because with my background in art criticism and art history, I love to talk about why I did what I did.
Now, some artists live for the stage, and some artists create simply because the need to create, the need to put beauty in the world is so ingrained within them that it's just part of who they are. And from the day that I first met Angie Goetz, I knew that she was one of those artists. And for sure, her artwork, it makes it obvious. Now, all of her drawings, artwork, painting, even tattoo flash is incredible. But I am obsessed now with this needle felted sculpture art. I've seen a couple of classes. I've seen people, you know, just starting to put it out there. But a lot of people aren't even familiar with what felted sculptures and the idea of what needle felted sculpture is. So can we get sort of a primer on what exactly it is that these awesome little sculptures are?
Yeah, felting goes back forever. All the way,
Really?
all the way back to really the beginning of time when people first started making their first shoes. So they would, he doesn't want to sit
little
up.
pan.
They would take the wool and they would make it wet. So that would be wet felting. And when you make felt wet, it will form a more solid object like you would see a sheet of felt. And so they would layer it and layer it and layer it. And that's how some of the very first shoes were made.
Had previously been drilled with 3 gimlet holes into it, opposite where my face would be. A few biscuits to nibble on were put in the box, and a bladder filled with water for both drinking and to wet my face in case I felt faint. In case I needed to bore more air holes, we put the gimlet in also. The box, lined with baize, a coarse woolen cloth, was to be sent as dry goods from Richmond to Philadelphia. It was nailed and tied with straps, and in large words, well marked with instructions, handle with care, and this side up. On the morning of March 23rd, 1849, I went into the box, which was a tight fit for me. I was 5 feet 8.5 inches and weighed about 180 pounds. I had no room in which to move and knew I would not be able to shift my position if I had to. I sat with my knees drawn to my chest and my arms wrapped around my knees. I was cramped and my back soon began to ache. The top of my head rested against the top of the box and soon became sore. Maybe my skull would explode. Why hadn't I planned to have a bigger box built? Only a half hour into my escape, I was already beginning to regret my plan. This is not a box, I thought. It's a coffin. Now I was equipped for my battle for liberty. After nailing down the lid, my friends took me to the express office, which was about a mile away. As soon as I arrived at the office, I was turned heels up while some person nailed something on the end of the box. I was then put on a wagon and driven to the depot with my head still down. At the depot, the man who drove the wagon tumbled me roughly onto the baggage car, where I fell on my right side. And so began the journey of Henry Box Brown.
So I am here with author, actress, storyteller, dynamic artist extraordinaire, Judy Wolfman, and one of my absolute all-time favorite visual artists, Brett Greiman. Now, the two of them have collaborated before and even come on the show to tell you about some amazing literature and illustrations that tell stories, authentic, real stories, in an accessible format for youth and young adults. Well, the collaboration was too fabulous. So they are back at it and have not one, but two amazing new books, one just fresh off the presses and the other just getting ready to come out. So I couldn't resist the chance to get to tell everyone in the entire South Central Pennsylvania region who desperately needs to read them all about these two books. Now, the first one that you just heard a sample of is A Slave No More. Now, A Slave No More is very much a legendary story. I mean, the man who mailed himself to freedom in a box is, you know, I had initially thought it was legend, but absolutely
It's for real.
true story.
It's for real.
And now tell me about the second book that is coming out.
Brett, show her the cover of that. It's called Getting to Know God.
Which
This
is
is
so
a
sweet.
spiritual kind of a thing.
And look at the colors on that. Oh my goodness, just that artwork is beautiful.
As I've gotten older, the poems have gotten shorter and shorter and shorter, relying more on the audience to fill in the blanks. The book Alchemy came about. I was in Canada to do a reading that was to be filmed, recorded, and the night before the reading, I was in the hotel bar with my publisher. We were sitting down having some more than some tequila, and he asked me if I had enough material for a new, rather thick book. And of course, I always have. I'm always writing. In fact, I've got, sheets of new stuff that's uncollected yet. And I said yes, and within 2 or 3 months after that, we had this new book, Alchemy, out, and I'm very proud of it. The inspiration for not only this book, but all my other books of poetry, my life, the little things in life. I don't think writing is a big deal. I don't think it's striving to write the big poem to make the big statement. I write to light up those little teeny moments in your life where you're looking in the mirror in the morning and you find something wrong with your face, which you always do. Things like that, letting your dog go out in the yard. The little teeny moments in trying to find something interesting or life-affirming in those moments. This is one from my book, They Never Told Me This Would Happen. Q. She told me she'd send me a letter.
I have a few different modes. I'll admit, I have the art that absolutely has to come out of me, and it just does. And a lot of those do tend to be sometimes related to what's going on politically or in current events. And then I have a mode that's, wow, how great this gallery is going to have a theme on this piece, and I'm going to do I'm going to do a theme piece. And then I have a different mode where I'm happy to do portraits for folks. So I know this sounds kind of odd, but I really have different modes, and I get different things out of them, and I have different aims as a result. So in fact, the work on my website, I have some pieces that are very expressive and very large. I have some pieces that are tighter and some pieces that clearly, let's get real, were portraits done, by commission. So,
Right.
And I'm okay with that because at the end of the day, I don't think the art is quite happy unless it has a home. Huh. I feel that way. I feel I'm not creating something so it's going to stay on my wall. I feel it needs to be appreciated by someone. It needs to have a life. So
it's part of that service component that's inherent in so much of what the rest of what you do is, that the art doesn't become fully art just by being made. It doesn't become art until it is somehow giving to someone else.
yeah. And I also think it's just that primordial need to create and add something to the world that was hopefully positive and not detractive. So
art's a way that you can make the world a little bit better, or that you can at least make sure that the energy that's coming out of you is creative energy rather than destructive energy.
I would endeavor to say too positive.
This is definitely not something
Yeah.
that I'm seeing even at craft shows and
They're not,
and stuff.
no.
And they're gorgeous. I mean, everyone that looks at the figures, they're so, I mean, first of all, the fact that each one is so different and how much texture they have. I mean, you want to just touch them.
Yeah.
You want to feel them. And the way that each shape is completely different. I mean, are they around like a wire form? Do you have
Some of them. Now he is, because he's posable, like a little, like his legs and his body. I mean, you can't hurt him. You can squish him a little bit. See, you can move him and you can move his arms and you could pose him different, or you could put his tail at a different angle if you wanted. So some of them, yes, to give them the flexibility. Now these guys definitely, because each toe is an individual wire.
Oh my goodness.
So each toe is an individual wire that comes back into the hand, into the arm. And so to do the toes, I'll heat wax, just regular white beeswax. And when I'm wrapping the toes, I'll put a little bit of beeswax just on the end to hold it. But other than that, these guys are entirely, all natural. For the most part, for my eyes, sometimes I will use glass, but most of my eyes, these are needle felted eyes.
So, what's the relationship between Chris Kulkusky and Jasper the Tourist, and what happened to Jasper the Tourist?
So for a few years, I played in bands exclusively. I didn't do a solo project. When I did start a solo project, that was Jasper the Tourist. And at the time, I didn't really want to use my real name for a few reasons. One was because I wanted to keep it open to collaboration, which I did a lot of with Jasper the Tourist, as you know, especially here in New York. And the other was I was just kind of trying to hide behind the name. I felt like I could create a character and portray that character when I played live, and that's what I did. However, I found that after a number of years to be pretty limiting, so I kind of hit a wall with songwriting because I felt like I had kind of boxed myself in, and I just wanted to do something different. I just wanted to evolve, and I felt like I was comfortable enough to start playing under my own name. So here we are. Stuck in Currituck. Well, I've taken the trip down to Nags Head and back up to Norfolk again and again. So many times I've lost count. You see, my girl's job took her down to the beach. Although I love the place, it's too far out of reach. How am I ever gonna work this out? Now here I am with my car broken down, and in the off season there's no one around. I'm just stuck.
So the ukulele is a little bit smaller than a guitar.
Yes.
And how else is it different for you in singing with the ukulele as opposed to vocalizing with a guitar?
I had never played a uke before I decided to buy one. And this was like, I guess 6 or 7 months ago I bought it and just taught myself how to play. I'd never picked one up before that. At first I was a little intimidated because it's tuned differently and the smallest string is on the opposite side, like where the bass string usually is on the guitar. I'm sorry, I'm not a technical musician, ladies and gentlemen, so this is the terminology you're gonna get from me, the little string and the big string.
We bring Jasper back if we want technology.
But It actually didn't take long for me to pick up. I had originally thought that Jasper the Tourist became not fun for me after a while. So I wanted to like have fun playing music again. So I decided to buy the uke to like, you know, keep me stimulated. I was learning something new. I thought I would just start out learning some covers. I started playing some obscure cover songs as well as some more popular tunes as well. And in no time I learned how to play ukulele. So now I can do it. I'm not an expert by any means, but I got to a point where I started to feel comfortable enough again to start writing. So in addition to the cool takes on cover songs, I'm writing my own stuff again. I don't have a lot, but I have a handful of songs that I'm feeling pretty good about, and I hope to continue that trend.
And I won't be stuck here in Currituck, changing my luck. When I'm stuck here in Currituck.
But where's the place of the artist in being able to help make this happen and being able to really make change in a plagued community? Can they? I mean, is that part of an artist role?
Sure. I mean, we see it done well at one of the places where I show in town, Hive Art Space on East King Street.
Great gallery
okay?
in Royal Square.
Great gallery in Royal Square, not just a great gallery, but a collection of artists that are introduced to opportunities to be out in the community, to do good for the community, to be aware of things that are going on in the community. Certainly G's Juke Joint, when they had issues, Hive Art Space heard about it very quickly as well, okay?
That's true.
So what do artists do? Well, probably they commune with other artists, and probably they like to group with other artists of their own kind, but that's an example of a place that is open, willing, and interested in supporting artists in art, but also with the understanding that they are in the neighborhood that they're in, they are in the community that they're in, and you only get what you give. I mean, if you don't put the time in, you're not going to get as much out of it. But I would hold them as a great example, and they're not alone. I mean, there are a lot of other great galleries right on that little block and in that larger area that care, that provide spaces, but that's my personal experience.
Silly me. I'm a pack rat. I save everything. I must have at least 250 pens saved. I've got bits and pieces of cable wire and connectors, curtain rods from windows in an old apartment, dried flowers, bricks, bits of boards. I've even got tacked up on the wall right in front of me now a veterinary appointment card from a dog that died 2 years ago. God, I love that dog. Doing this for as long as I have, you get the nomination for, say, a pushcart prize or something like that. Or things like that are very good for the ego. The aha moments for me, the things that really make it matter for me are, like I said, getting up and doing the work every day. People ask, I've run into writers who say, John, I want to be a writer too, but I've already had 24 rejections. I want to give it up. And to that I say, a couple of years ago, I tried to estimate how many rejections I've had over the years. And a rough estimation going back probably 7 years ago was more than 3,000 rejections. Rejection is just put in the way of a writer or anyone. It's just to weed out the unwilling. I love you at 70 miles an hour in traffic on the Schuylkill Expressway when everything else around me has turned to madness, spilled wine, and fear.
The texture is very different on these. Some of them have this more, some parts have this sort of fluffy texture and others have a more tight, dense texture. Like, is there, and none of it looks like, the little felt sheets I remember from preschool. Like, what gives it that look of that very raw, sort of natural looking, like, how is that felt?
Well, yes. Well, because it comes as loose wool. So felt only becomes felt after you felt it, which means that either you make it wet and you make it into like solid, like, they'll make wet felted scarves and things like that.
Right.
Or by basically poking it with a needle that has barbs in it. Now, my needles, I have probably 20 or 30 different needles, and they're all barbed differently. So they all do different things. I do bleed for these guys. Yeah. Yes, I do bleed for these guys because you get to going and the next thing you know, you've accidentally impaled your finger. Luckily, it's not too awful and I'm used to it with the tattoos and piercings, so it's okay. Yeah.
Well, there you go.
But people do joke though. Apparently I like very painful art. It's obviously a thing.
We bleed for our art.
Right, so the different needles do different things. And the ones that you see that have like the fuzzy texture, I have needles with a reverse barb. So after I felt them and I layer all the colors and I do all that, then I'll take this needle and I will poke that in. And when it's on the out, it's pulling just a little bit out to give it that like fuzzy look. Wow. But it depends which one you're looking at because some of them are simple. The time that you put into each one, it depends. This one, his skin tone is layers and layers and layers of different colors and different shading, and it is all done with an individual needle. He's entirely with one individual needle.
So we have raw wool.
Yes, in a fluffy
raw, a big
pile.
Old fluffy bag of raw wool, and it has to be dyed, and then it has to be actually turned into the felt, which has to be individually needle poked over the whole thing to make it into these dense figures and shaped, sometimes even over a form. Oh my gosh. So how long does it take to create one of these figures with all the work that goes into articulating it and shaping and sculpting it?
It depends. I do use core wool, so that is basically, well, it looks similar to if you just shaved a chunk off of a sheep and there it is. That's what it is. It's that color, it's that texture. Now all these wools are washed. They're washed and processed so that they're clean and they're not dirty and all of that. And then you can process the wools differently too. Like this is just curls from a sheep. That's totally unprocessed. It's just cleaned.
Wow.
And that's all that is. However, there are some that are processed down to an almost silky sheen.
Ooh.
They're very nice. I'll use them in eyes a lot. Like I think I used that in his eyes. I can't get him out. There he is. Yeah, I did. See, so his eyes, the whites in his eyes was a very shiny, silky one that I used. And this is that too also.
Wow. So this guy, his eyes are actually made of felt. I mean, down to he's got little like hints of red for his little veins in his eyes and the centers and the blue. And this is incredibly silky, his beard, with the grays and the browns streaked through it and his shaped mustache.
Yeah, I love him. His clothes, I make everything 100%.
Judy gave me the manuscript to see if I'd be interested in doing it. And for me personally, the criteria as to whether I would say yes or no, I want to do it, to me it was very important that Judy did not write it within the confines of one belief system, one religion. It's very open-ended and it allows the reader to make decisions on their own based on the questions that Judy asked. So that was a real attraction for me personally. And after reading the manuscript, I told Judy, yes, I definitely want to illustrate this. That connection that I make with nature, with the divine, through my artwork, that for me personally is very important. I mean, I had 4 years I painted murals at the Nixon Nature Center, so I have about 50 of them grand total there. So I've always been very much attuned to nature, and this then just followed right into everything that I do.
Now, where, if people want to know more, they want to get these books, they want to look at the rest of your catalog, where can they go to?
They can go to my website, which is www.judybwolfman.com. And if they don't put the B in there, Carla, they're going to get a real estate agent in Florida.
Okay, judybwolfman.com. Got it.
And Amazon is carrying all of the books. And I imagine that Getting to Know God is going to go to Amazon as well. And of course, the various publishers, they're willing to send out copies. If you bought in quantity, there's a very nice little discount that they can get. So it might be something to be looking into.
Excellent. And now for people that want to see more of your artwork, Brett, that want to experience the wonderful variety of your creations, where can people go to find you?
Well, I got to get that URL shortened, but maybe I can give it to you. You can post it on the screen. But if you just do a Google search for my name, Brett Greiman, the very first website that will come up on that Google search is my business website. But I'm also on Facebook too, so you can check it out there.
Excellent. So look up Brett Greiman on Facebook and Google you, and we'll be able to find some samples
it'll come up,
of this
if you
gorgeous
Google
artwork.
my name, it'll come up Brett Greiman Design.
Fabulous.
I saw the ghost of Etta James driving a blue Toyota. I tipped an imaginary hat and smiled. That made my day. Most usual questions I'm asked is, how did you get started? And I always say that I was interested in girls, and I was too short for the basketball team and too light for the football team. But I learned that writing was my one talent to attract girls, and I found out that the better I wrote, the prettier the girls got. I got good real quick. He knew it as sure as he knew anything in his life. No summer is endless.
When you're living in a reactive mode, or if you have scarcity, art isn't something that money is spent on. It's not something that you spend time on. It's not what you do. There are other things on the top of the Maslow's pyramid that you have to take care of before you necessarily add the art. So it can be transformative, the experience of being a part of art in your community. I don't think it's something that only art teachers and music teachers say, oh, art is very, very necessary for, to grow a wonderful, well-rounded human being. And they're right, it is. But if all there is all there is, and there's nothing else out there, we live and then we die and that's it, then the compelling reason and a connection to something higher might not be there. If you believe there's something else, and you believe that there are deeper reasons why we're here, I think that's what drives art. I don't think it's just beautiful mark making. I think it is whatever word you use, whether it's spiritual connection or, connection with God, or that's what breathes life into our world. It's not just, getting through the day. It's something larger.
But why felting?
Well, one day I literally saw this animatronic little white fox that was in this really happy video, which is funny because the girl that's singing this song, and I can't think of it now, it's a very small artist, but anyway, she was very bubbly and happy, right? And I'm watching it. I'm looking at this little fox, and I'm thinking, this fox, I wasn't even listening to her, but I'm like, the fox, he is great. I was like, I want to be able to make something that looks like that. But I didn't want to use synthetic things, because I'm all about the earth, and all of my art's always been that way. Always something, rocks or whatever, you know?
Right.
So I started to look things up, and I came across a site, you know, and I found this kit that I had to order from Texas, because, you know, you can't buy this anywhere,
Right.
on how to make a teddy bear.
Oh.
And so that's where I started, and I made this little teddy bear. And as I'm making him, the instructions were like
Right.
going this way further and further. And I'm like, I could do this better. You know, I can do this. And well, his arms could move. You know, his legs could move. I could put them on waxed thread. So anyway, that's where it came from. The kit went out the window, and I basically used the contents to create my own little bear. And then I placed another order for just random wool, all the needles that I could get, everything. And I created what I cloud watch on the walls, and I made them come to life.
This song I don't have a title for, but I was thinking Adversity Diversity would be a good title for it. So I might stick with that. I just thought of that this morning. We are so beside ourselves, besides us, there's everyone else. Western stress, Eastern oppression, Northern light shine on Southern tension. Western stress, Eastern oppression, Northern light shine on Southern tension. It's everywhere.
Now, I noticed that you have, compared to some uke players, a very unique strumming style.
Well,
What's wrong with that? What was that about?
today especially, as you probably saw, I was using a pick, which traditionally, from what I've read, isn't done with the ukulele. And since I bought it, I've been playing with my finger. You like do this strummy thing, you know? That's the way you're supposed to play ukulele. However, I haven't like conditioned myself to keep my nail long on my right pointer finger, which I strum with. So I realized a few days ago when I clipped my nail, oh shoot, I shouldn't have clipped my nail, because then I went to practice, and before you know it, I had a giant blister on the tip of my finger, and I could no longer strum with it. So, yeah, so I thought I would give it a shot, and before we came into filming, I gave it a try, and it hurt pretty bad. So I won't make that mistake again. So that's why I was using a pick today. Typically, I wouldn't do that. I prefer the sound of it with the finger. It just sounds a little more natural and not so snappy or poppy, you know? Not that it was necessarily bad, but I prefer the more natural sound. That's how it's meant to be played, you know?
We're not the It's everywhere. Western stress, Eastern oppression, Northern light shine on Southern tension. Western stress, Eastern oppression, Northern light shine on Southern tension. It's
Well, I definitely want to record more for sure. Once I get enough songs together and I'm close here, I would like to do a full-fledged album. I did record an EP in North Carolina a few months back of 3 cover songs, but I want the album to be like a mix of originals and interesting takes on songs that you may or may not have heard before.
don't get it, do they? Not saying more than 20 words to each other the whole afternoon. We planted and hosed and scrubbed the entire yard, getting the place ready for summer. When we were done, your shoes and jeans were soaked. My hands were sore and my neck was stiff. We came in the house, ate a salad, and fell asleep in front of the TV. This is the gift, and I am one of the few lucky enough to have solved its mystery. And I've learned over the years that getting published, there's just no one way of getting that done. For me, what worked was I grew up in the midst of the Mimeo revolution as far as small magazines in the late 60s, early 70s, early 80s. And I published in tons and tons and tons of little magazines. And doing that got my name out there. That spread the word. And eventually publishers started to take notice, or I wrote to them and helped them take notice. People self-publish. If you're going to self-publish, you've got to do it with a plan. You can't treat this like it's not a business. You've got to go out and work a plan and sell your work and yourself just like you would any other item. The readers have to want to come to you, and you've got to, make them get there. Sometimes the most unexpected thing about beauty is finding it gone.
When and this is the way that I work, when I get a concept or a concern or something that I am just bleeding inside for, I have to do it. So that can mean that I don't do a painting for a couple months and then I have to do one. Because I'm one of those artists that thinks very deeply and coagulates and thinks and thinks and thinks about it, and then finally they do it and they look at it and they go, well, that's not what was in my head.
So you were planning
so it's
it like
wrong. It's wrong. And then I keep working at it. It's very much a struggle.
It has to fight its way forth, twisting, bursting fits of passionate creativity.
I know, it's so romantic. But
I love it.
But
yes.
I think about Jackson Pollock.
So, whole body painted, just feel it.
Well, what he would say is, enter a trance-like, almost ritualistic sort of situation where he's working. But at a certain point, he's stepping back and he's looking at it and going, I need a little more green here. Or this isn't saying what I wanted to say, and I won't call myself a Jackson Pollock, and of course my work looks nothing like his as well, but I absolutely get it. It's like you're in a trance, you've got to get this done, you've got to get this out, and then you step back and you look at it, and to a certain extent you say, I gave birth to this. Is it baked? Is it ready to go? And then you assess, and unfortunately the commercial part of you sometimes kicks in and goes, is that going to sell? And I don't often care. And I don't care. And that's the beauty of art. There are lovely people that understand that art is important and creation of art is important, and they get the authenticity of the piece and, not just enthusiasm, but it speaks to them. It's an emotional connection. People do buy art as an investment, but, to hang on their wall. Sure, and I encourage that too. So we were talking before about, before we started filming, about folks that were interested in art also just wanted to kind of buy a piece of the artist. And I think it's not that they want to so much buy a piece of the artist, but it's that intangible unknown. They want to understand it. They want to get it. And maybe to a certain extent, and maybe by hanging this on the wall, they'll feel more of a connection with the artist, or spend time with it and engage with it and maybe understand where the person was coming from.
The miracle is not always what it appears to be. The miracle is sometimes only smoke and mirrors and some poor slob's picture of his slightly broken dreams. You've got to make the reader, when they read something, even without a name on it, they say, oh, that's a John Yamrus poem. Or when they hear something, they'll go, that's Miles Davis, that's B.B. King. I mean, you've got to find that voice, and that doesn't happen overnight. You've got to, as a musician, you got to play a lot of crap before you find your voice. As a writer, you've got to write a lot of crap before you find your voice. But it will come. If you've got what's inside of you and you've got the drive and you've got what it takes, that voice will come to the forefront. And you can't just, it doesn't exist in a vacuum. You've got to read. You've got to go out and see what the competition is doing. As an example, you wouldn't see Kmart existing without taking a walk down the street to see what Walmart's doing. You've got to find out what's new, what your contemporaries are doing, and what's going on around you. When I was a kid, I worked in a shoe factory. I was a heeler, putting heels on women's shoes. I'd glue the heels to the soles and put them on a conveyor that took them to a trimmer who sanded the excess. If I didn't do it well enough or fast enough, he'd turn around and throw a shoe at me. Pretty soon it got to be routine. I'd glue and duck, and glue and duck. I was young and quick, and he rarely ever hit me. Eventually the work ran out, and I moved on. I often wondered what drives a man to act like that. After all, we were piece workers. We got paid by the shoe. It cost him money to throw at me. Anyway, that was a long, long time ago, and I'm sure he's dead by now. Leo. His name was Leo.
So did you start doing 3D sculptures, and like how did that journey of art as a child lead you up to the place of being able to create these intricate sculptures?
I think sculpture was my favorite. It was an art teacher, you know, in, I'm trying to think, I'm not sure what grade now, that caught my interest with sculpture. Mm-hmm. And then she kind of pulled me out of my dark, you know, she pulled me out of the dark corner of, I make my art and here it sits and nobody's looking at it, and said, right, we do these art shows, you know, you could, and so she got me involved. And I started to spend more time with her based on my involvement with that, and I started sculpting. I made all different things. I tried all different mediums, metals and wood. I did soapstone, which proved to be actually far more painful than this. So, but I did love it, and I did do it. But it was something that I was kind of left with something cold at the end. It was kind of a cold, hard object. And that wasn't what I wanted. I wanted kind of like Dr. Frankenstein. I wanted to bring them to life as much as I could. That it has to be hand-raised, family-raised sheep that are hand-sheared. I will not touch a single piece of wool ever that is taken off of an animal with a machine. That won't happen.
Wow.
Yeah.
So now, where can people go to find these sculptures and to find your artwork?
I have a Facebook page and an Etsy page.
It becomes a part of you. If it's a creative piece that you love, whether it's music or a book, a very special story, or a piece of art, you have a relationship with it. You're right, it is relational. But what struck me from what you said is a connection that I know is very personal to me, but a shared connection, and it's the concept of continuing revelation, of connecting with the higher spirit. And every time you do it, you know, it is different, it's relational, the fact that we could connect with the spiritual is amazing. And it's, you know, being open to that connection. You don't know if it's going to happen, but when it happens, you know that it happens. But for sure, I don't think any artist begins working, you know, idealistically at least, with thinking that, you know, someone's going to buy this just hanging on the wall, look at it and admire it. I think every artist has a little bit of an ego trip, everyone, whether or not they admit it, and they want you to feel that connection with the piece, and they want it to become, frankly, maybe even more important in time. So we've talked about community connection and, you know, reason for art, and ways that our artists in the York community have, you know, endeavored to engage, not just with the artistic community and supporting each other and all the other businesses, but supporting the community as a part of the community. And we don't create in a vacuum. We don't create out of a vacuum. And when you create something and give birth to something, it's out there in the world, and it also has the opportunity to transform. So I have a website, erikajuran.com, and a Facebook page, The Art of Erika Juran. And Hive Art Space, of course, is a wonderful place, and they tend to change their thematic show every month, so there's always something new and exciting every first Friday. And, of course, I'm out here in the York community, so...
Awesome.
Yes.
So you have no excuse not to find her, not to be touched, transformed, and community inspired and moved by both the work and the philosophy.
After work, I come home, walk into the kitchen, and throw my wallet on the counter. Then my pens, my cards, and finally my keys, which slide along the counter, spin, do a little dance, and finally come to a stop. Someday, so will I. You can find my books, of course, on Amazon. You can find anything you want on Amazon. You can find videos about my writing. You can find interviews and videos of me, my work with some great illustrators, and my website, johnyamrus.com, or just go to Amazon and look for my work. Of all the questions I get asked, the one that I don't think I've ever been asked is why. I don't do it because I need whatever little bit of attention it gets me. I don't do it because it keeps me busy. I think I do it just because I have to. And I don't have any other explanation for that. It's, why do you wake up in the morning and feed your dog and hold that stupid little animal? It's because you have to.
Baby, I'm just not I'm as sexy as a ballerina on a TV screen. Happy as a newborn baby when it sees his mom. And I'm grateful to the bullet that's just about to take me home. 'Cause I wanna die like Jesse James. I wanna die like Jesse James. I wanna die like Jesse James.
Thanks for joining us on another amazing episode of Spotlight, a production of Culture in Maine, York's cultural showcase. We want to hear your ideas, and we want you to be a part of the show. Whether you're an artist or a fan, send us an email to cultureinmaine@gmail.com. Check us out on the web at wrct.tv, or make sure to find all of our past episodes on YouTube at youtube.com/White Rose Community TV. Thanks again for joining us, and have a great week. We'll see you soon, right here on the corner of Culture and Maine.
Now you know